And good evening. We're on the campus of the University of Dubuque at beautiful Chalmers Field for our UD football show with head football coach Stan Zweifel joining us here tonight. Just prior to the Spartans' practices, they get ready for game number 3 of the season as they'll take on the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point. 6 o'clock kickoff on Saturday night. And we'll be broadcasting it on the river for you at 5:40. On Saturday night. The Spartans played a very tough opponent in 9th-ranked Wisconsin Platteville this past Saturday night, falling in that 138-24. We're going to talk with Coach Zweifel about that, and also the opponent for this Saturday, the Wisconsin Platteville Pointers. And we're also going to visit with a couple of Coach Zweifel's assistants, Mike Schmidt, the defensive coordinator, Jake Olsen, the offensive coordinator. They're going to be on our program here this evening on this Tuesday night. We will not have a program next week because the Spartans will have a bye week. So we will take the Tuesday night off in between their bye week before they get started for Iowa Conference play. But we will have shows the rest of the Tuesday evenings after that through the Iowa Conference schedule. But we're going to talk about the game this past Saturday. We're going to visit about Wisconsin Platteville. We're going to do that here in the next half hour. This is the UD Football Show with Stan Zweifel. We'll bring in Coach right after this. And we're back high atop of Chalmers Field here for our UD football show with Coach Stan Zweifel joining us right now. And, Coach, thanks for coming on the program again here this evening.
Always my pleasure to see you, Tim, and get a chance to talk about UD football.
Well, tough loss for you on Saturday night against 9th-ranked Wisconsin Platteville, falling to the Pioneers 38-24 in the battle for the bridge. You know, you opened the game almost like week 1, except for the fumble on the opening possession. Yeah. But then you picked up the drive after your defense helped you out and had a nice scoring drive to start the ball game. But after that, the offense for the Pioneers got going.
Yeah, you know, I told you before we started the show, I was very disappointed in the loss. This is our 5th season here, and we have gone about playing all the toughest competition we possibly can. And we know we've got Point next week, and we scrimmaged Oshkosh. It's like I'm back in the WIAC for our opening 4 games. And the WIAC probably is the strongest conference in Division III football. And I really thought we'd be a little bit more physically ready for Platteville. And hats off to Platteville. They really played hard and kind of wore us down on both fronts. But that being said, it's a great learning experience for our kids. They are the 9th-ranked team in NCAA Division III. I don't know if we'll get a shot to play those guys again somewhere down the road. We sure as heck hope we will. But it was a game that we learned some things about ourselves. And I think the one thing, as I told our team on Sunday, Tim, the thing that kind of the game mirrored is we are never able to practice for 2 hours and 45 minutes or 3 hours with the kind of intensity level you need to win one of these games. We've been good in all our games for a lot of the time, but there's also been times when we've been a lull and not been as good as we should be. We're trying to use that as a learning experience for us now that we can practice with greater intensity and greater enthusiasm for the entire practice.
Mm-hmm. What made Platteville so tough to stop on the offensive side of the ball as you look back to, especially that second quarter?
Yeah, you know, the quarterback was dang hard to tackle, wasn't he? And I thought not only was he dang hard to tackle, he was a very accurate thrower. And what they do with their scheme is they don't run a lot of plays, but they run their plays from a multiple look of formations, and they execute it very well. And they've got some really nice, big physical receivers who block very well because a lot of people are trying to duplicate what they've done on offense. But I tell you this, Tim, that what makes them the toughest is what they've done in the weight room in the offseason. They're bigger and stronger than Platteville has been in the past. They're obviously more physical as a result of being in the weight room, and that's really made a difference in their football program is the speed, the size, and the strength of their athletes.
Mm-hmm. Your team did gain 454 yards of offense on them and were able to move the ball. And Platteville with a lot of good defensive players back from a year ago. So, I mean, you can take away some positives.
Yeah, Tim, we've always thought we can move the ball here. And, Tim, you've been with us for 5 years, and that's never been a problem for us. We'd like to have translated those 450 yards into a little bit more points than what we had. We had some, I thought, left 14 points on the field in the first half, which came back to haunt us. We're always going to be a very effective football team offensively, but what you've got to score points as well. And we had talked about playing with Platteville. You better score some points now because they're going to score some points offensively, and we weren't able to hold up our end offensively to score enough points.
Mm-hmm. On the offensive side of the ball, some guys that stood out. Sean Anderson, 11 catches, or making it 12 catches. Tyler Rutenbeck had a good game for you. And Brian Bradshaw, 349 yards, 2 touchdowns against a tougher defense.
Yeah, Rutenbeck continues to be just a big play guy for us, and anybody who's seen us play we've been able to throw the ball over the top of some defenses too, Tyler, and he's been a very effective receiver. Size being part of that, and also he just gets on you real fast. His stride is really deceptive. Shawnee's had 2 really good games against Platteville. He had 13 catches a year ago. He had 12 this. And Brian Bradshaw, I think, played okay. I wish he'd have played better. And the 2 interceptions came back to hurt us a little bit. And I think probably the biggest difference in that game, Tim, was our inability to keep people off of Brian early. He only got sacked 4 times, but he had 7 hurries. And there were a lot of other times that he felt some pressure and had to leave the pocket. And unless we get that corrected, Tim, it'll be very difficult for us to sustain the type of drives we want to sustain.
On the defensive side of the ball, linebacker Blaine Snitker had a nice game. In fact, your entire linebacker core played very well. And Darren Miles back there, a couple of pass breakups and interception, his first one.
And we're still continuing to take the ball away. And we took the ball away from him with 3 interceptions on Saturday night, which is a very good sign for us. I think we've got almost as many interceptions in the first 2 games as we had the entire season last year, so that's really good. Our kicking was good. Curtis Brawl kicked a 40-yard field goal and was successful on all of our extra points. That parts of our game, which I told you a week ago, Tim, I was so scared of the special teams. We kind of played them even, I thought, in our special teams. We weren't able to win one of the other 2 phases, and as a result, we lost that game.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you turn the page now, you look ahead to Wisconsin Stevens Point here, and what did you talk about? It was disappointing, of course, not to get a win and maybe really propel you into what could have been something that made you feel really good about yourself. But you played with the 9th-ranked team, lost, and you knew it was going to be a tough portion of the schedule to get through. But what did you talk about this week?
We always talk about, and I mentioned this to you before we got in there, Tim, I never try to tell our players something that isn't true. We're going to play a very physical football team. I think it'll be the most physical football team we play this year on Saturday. They'll try to run the football, and they'll try to negate you from running the football. They'll be awful big, awful physical, and awful strong. I like our skill matchup on both sides of the ball. I think we're going to have probably, again, it looks to me like we're going to be very, very equal in the special teams, so who can make the big plays on either side of the ball. But more importantly, Tim, we've got to protect better on offense if we want to really get a chance to beat these guys. And then there'll be a team that'll try to run the football on you, maintain possession of the clock, do those kind of things, keep the ball away from us. And last year, they were the best team we played last year, even though they ended up 2-8. And that to us was really shocking about how their football team finished up. But the Saturday we played them last year, they were the best team we played all year.
I'm not going to argue that. I remember broadcasting that game, and the Spartans were their own worst enemy at times in that game. A few turnovers, but 268 yards rushing last year. They really ran the ball very impressive.
They were very impressive last year, yes.
And last year, one thing they did well defensively, made it tough for you on 3rd down.
They really did. We had it was our worst conversion rate on 3rd down since I've been here. And I think they did that with a little bit of pressure, but also they really, in last year's game, we didn't have the ability to run the ball very much. And so as a result, we're back in a drop-back mode the whole type of game. They're doing a little bit different blitzes and dropping off some folks and doing some things. But, again, that's going to be our strength this year, Tim. We're going to throw the ball, but we'd really like to go up there and be able to play with those guys physically. And for me now, as I told you earlier, boy, we couldn't get more battle prepared for our regular season schedule when we get in conference than what we've done in our non-conference games. Went up to lacrosse and beat a very good lacrosse team at lacrosse. I thought for probably 2 quarters and a half it was probably an even game with UW Platteville, but you can't beat the 9th-ranked team in the country if you only play 2.5 quarters equal. You got to play all 4 quarters. And then this game we'll get a chance to see how we respond to a tough loss, how we come out, what's our team really made of character-wise, and can we be physical enough to stand in there with a team that's physical?
This is the UD Football Show with head coach Stan Zweifel here on this Tuesday evening. We've got much more of the program. We're going to visit more with Coach Zweifel when we come back, and then hear from the coordinators for the Spartans as our UD Football Show with Stan Zweifel continues on here on this Tuesday evening from the University of Dubuque campus. We'll be back with more after this on 101.1 The River. Stevens Point Pointers coming up Saturday night, 5:40 with a pregame here on 101.1 The River's 6 o'clock kickoff, game number 3 of the season. And the final tune-up for the Iowa Conference, Coach. It's, a week after that, you'll have a chance to take a bye week and prepare for the Iowa Conference. But, that's what this tough schedule has been all about, trying to prepare you for what's going to be a tough conference and get you ready for the heat of battle there.
No question about it. We open up with Central, who has played very well in their first 2 games. Their bye week, as a matter of fact, is this Saturday. And then they play Albion from Michigan here on the following Saturday before they play us. The conference has been about 500. Wartburg got beat by Bethel last week in a very strong intersectional game. Bethel's in the top 5 in the country. Buena Vista's had just a knockdown, drag-out schedule like us. They opened at Platteville and then had Concordia Moorhead at their place. They're playing very, very well right now. Coe's undefeated. I don't think they've played the non-conference schedule that some of the other folks have played, but they're surely going to be one of the teams that's going to be in the hunt. And as I always say, I think it's going to be Central, Coe, Wartburg. Simpson, I think, was a little bit surprised on Saturday when they lost up at Gustavus. I think that was a mild upset. Going away from home is always tough, obviously, but I think the conference is probably playing out just about the way we thought it was going to be. Our games, as we've talked about, we're going to have those 3 tough games, and Central, who I think they're the favorite, and that's good because we're excited about having them come to our place and play. That's turned into a real nice rivalry for us, Tim. Yeah. Very, very close games, very, very exciting games, and very, very competitive games. And that was a game we lost a year ago, and we threw an interception on the 1-yard line that would have won the game, and it went the other way, and we ended up losing that game. So we're excited about opening up the conference with them. They've been a traditional football powerhouse in the league. And I think the big thing in the league this year, as we talked about earlier, Tim, is, man, you got to win the close games. We win our close games last year. We're conference champs. We don't win the close games. We're second place. So hopefully this competitive schedule that we've played is getting us ready for the Iowa Conference.
Let's visit a little bit more about this Saturday as you'll travel up to Stevens Point between a 3 and 4 hour drive from here. So you'll take off Saturday morning, head up there to northern Wisconsin and Stevens Point. You've seen them play just 1 game this year. Different personnel than last year, but it's pretty much the same philosophy as they've played smash mouth football, right?
Very physical football. And Tom Jernell, their head coach, and I go back probably to about 1985. Been very good friends, competed against each other. Probably about 20 times we've played each other as coaches. Going to be really exciting to go up there and play him. He's in his 2nd year. He's doing a nice job. Again, as I told you, last year when we played him, when I talked to him after the game, I said, you're going to have a chance to win the league. Things went kind of south for him on that, and they have really had a very tough physical fall camp, and they, too, have really been working on trying to be more physical and just to be to play a little bit more running the football and stopping the run. So it'll be interesting to see how that all pans out for us when we play them. They opened up with Rockford, and it wasn't a very strong test for them, Tim. We've seen that film, and I'm not sure what we can take from that film other than, Point's a lot better than Rockford, that I can tell you. So what we're trying to figure out that is, personnel part in that. So we've looked at last year's game tape, and then we've looked at some of the teams that they played last year that are similar to us in style and formation. So we think we have a good handle, but they're kind of an unknown in many, many ways about what they might do or what they could do because we just don't have a lot of information on them this year.
Mm-hmm. Played a physical team in Platteville last Saturday night. How is the injury situation as you get ready for that game Saturday?
One of the things we talked about, Tim, I was so concerned about how our schedule was opened up, and we've been very, very fortunate. I think our guys have done a great job in the offseason. Coach Mike Mandot, our strength coach, has done a really nice job developing those kids. And we've really practiced. Our fall camp was so different this year, Tim, with the lack of double days. So I think we're pretty fresh, but we'll see what happens after Saturday. But, knock on wood, we're fairly healthy right now.
So obviously this is a huge game for you. You want to bounce back from a difficult loss last Saturday night, and this will be a great litmus test to see how you're faring before you get ready for the Iowa Conference here.
Yeah, I tell our guys that one play never decides a game, and one game never decides a season. It'll be another test for us to get us prepared to see what we need to correct and what corrections we can make, personnel, schemes, etc. And then after this Saturday, everything becomes really kind of a lot more important because you can lose all your non-conference games and still make the national playoffs. So we want to really see if we can't come out there and match their intensity and their physicalness, and then see what we can do to get better than we were last Saturday. And then, of course, you kind of put the close on your preparation and you get ready for the conference games that count.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll let you go, Stan, but I know it was great on Saturday night to see such a great turnout of Spartan
What
fans.
What atmosphere, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was a great small college game, and there was a lot of excitement. And you know what? We have a little rivalry with Platteville, too, and I have a little rivalry with Coach Emmendorfer, but he was very complimentary after the game and thought we have a very talented team, and hopefully that'll continue to get better with that and see where we are as we move to Stevens Point.
Yeah, it's a great natural rivalry, just 20 miles apart, separated by the Mississippi River, so it's great that will continue. Coach, we'll let you go. We'll talk to your assistants before we bring them over here, though. Let's talk a little bit about those guys.
Yeah,
They've been with you for a while. They've
got Mike Schmidt, who's been with me for this is his 5th year. He's coached every dang position on our football team. He's been the coordinator the last 2 years. I met Mike. He was a great player at UW La Crosse as a rival against us, and I was at UW Whitewater, and then ended up being a GA for us at Minnesota State University in Mankato. And he's really really a big part of our football team. And then Jake Olsen joined us 2 years ago. He's our head men's lacrosse team. He was an outstanding 2-sport athlete at Wartburg. And I like him even though he's a graduate of Wartburg, Tim. So that says a lot about Jake. But both those guys are doing a great job for us, and they'll talk a little bit more specifically about our offense and defense.
Coach, we'll let you get ready for practice. Thanks for spending some time with us here on this Tuesday evening. We'll see you Saturday night in Stevens Point.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, that's head coach Stan Zweifel, the University of Dubuque head football coach. We've got more here from our Stan Zweifel show with Coach Stan Zweifel. We'll come back after this on 101.1 The River. Hey, we're back on this Tuesday evening, and we're pleased to be joined by Mike Schmidt. He's the defensive coordinator here at the University of Dubuque on head coach Stan Zweifel's staff for 5 years. And Mike, thanks for coming on the program here.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Well, let's talk about the defensive side of the ball for the Spartans. You said it 1-1 on the year, and up at UW La Crosse. That must have been a lot of fun going up there. Your alma mater, and
it's a lot of fun.
Coming away with a victory.
That was a lot of fun. And my wife is actually from La Crosse, and so a ton of family there. It was nice going back, but that's a different place than what I played at. That's a new stadium, new coaching staff, new everything. So it was that made it a lot easier going back there, I guess, and going back to a place like that to get a win. So it made it a little bit easier for us.
That's always the way it is. You leave and then they put the new stuff in.
Exactly.
It always seems to work that way. But let's go back to Saturday night against a 9th-ranked team in Wisconsin Platteville. Mm-hmm. Knew it was going to be quite a challenge as they have a very potent offense. And, grade your team out defensively. How do you feel about the performance overall?
Well, we lost a key part of our defense during the week. Actually, almost immediately after the radio show last week, we lost probably our best player on defense, Dylan Ramsey, to an ACL for the rest of the season, and lost him. And I thought our guys responded really well. Certainly we gave up some big plays, but we've really started well, which has been a huge part of, I think, both games, keeping us in it early. In our first 12 possessions of halves this year, in our 4 halves that we've played, the first 3 of each one, we've had 11 stops and 3 turnovers. So I'm not sure that we can start much better than we've started. We've got to do a better job in making adjustments. That's on me and our staff doing that for our guys, putting them in better spots. And it goes back to the same thing as it was last year. And I think in any team, you got to eliminate big plays out of your defense. And certainly we allowed Platteville to make some big plays, and we had some key situations where we allowed them to make big things happen when we had an opportunity to stop them or make big things happen on our end. And that's what happens. Good teams put you in bad situations like that, and you've got to come out on top of those things. And we didn't, unfortunately. But we certainly have been opportunistic. I think 2 of the biggest things we've tried to improve upon in the offseason was our turnovers and how good we perform in the red zone. And I think in both games, and including against a good Platteville team who's really good in the red zone, we played really well. We had a turnover in the red zone and another one that was just outside of the red zone. And we've been and held them to a field goal on one of them. We've played pretty good in that area, and we've forced 8 turnovers so far this year. in 2 games. So I think we're feeling pretty good about how opportunistic we've been, but we've got to execute better to eliminate some of those big plays.
That's certainly tough to lose Ramsey for the season, but personnel-wise, how do you feel about your depth? I mean, at those positions, it seemed like your backup came in and played pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a backup that has a pick 6 and I think 9 tackles on the season. That's a pretty good deal at corner. We do have pretty good depth at that spot. We feel pretty good about that position. We need some of our young linebackers to grow up and play a little bit better. I tell them that every single day. I think they're going to be superstars. I think they are superstar kids right now, and they need to play like that all the time. And we're counting on them. We're leaning on those guys to play that kind of way. We're leaning on some of our seniors in the back end, certainly in Darren Miles, to play that way. But we're as good as we've been defensively since we've been here, and we've got to do a better job, speaking as coaches, getting our guys in better spots, coaching them better, and giving them a better opportunity to play at a championship level. We've got to do that, and that's on us. And I think our guys really respect that attitude, that we feel like that we have their best interest in mind as well.
Mm-hmm. As you look at your next opponent here, Stevens Point, offensively, what's your focus been on them?
Well, we certainly I told the guys, our staff, the other day, there was a big game. I think most people heard about it in College Station, Texas this past week, and some build up into that thing. This is right. This is our Texas A&M game, about getting a little bit of redemption from last year, about how poorly we played at home to this team, and we've certainly been looking forward to this game for a long, long time. And they're explosive. They are going to try to establish the run and run the football, but they're going to take their shots, and we got to be ready for those and be ready to stop the run and be opportunistic against a really good football team.
Well, Mike, we will turn the headsets over to Jake Olsen. He's going to come over here and talk with us. But thanks a lot for coming on the program. We'll look forward to seeing the Spartan defense perform on Saturday night, and have a good practice there. And now Jake Olsen, offensive coordinator of the Spartans, settles in there. And Jake, thanks a lot for joining us here.
Thanks, Tim. Glad to be here.
Well, let's talk about your offense this year. First 2 games out of the box. How would you grade your 2 performances?
Okay, I think we still haven't played a perfect game yet. There's been aspects that we need to improve on each game, and everybody's waiting for that perfect game. I don't know when it'll come, but we hope it's this weekend because we need to get back on track, I think, as a team. And offensively, that's our goal and objective. Mm-hmm.
As you look at your team, it seems like they haven't missed a beat from last year. You got a new quarterback in Brian Bradshaw. His first 2 games last week, a little bit rougher, but the first week, my goodness, he just really stepped in there. That has to be a real luxury for you on the offensive side of the ball to have a guy just take over like that.
Now, when you lose a guy like Wyatt Hannes the year before, it's really kind of a big question mark. How are you going to replace a guy that's been a 3-year starter, has been a conference player of the year, set a number of records here? And to have a guy like Brian Bradshaw come in and kind of just take the reins is a blessing. He's a very smart football player who understands the game, and that you can't teach some of that stuff. It's hereditary. It's God-given. Brian Bradshaw holds some characteristics that I think everybody wants to recruit for, but doesn't necessarily get. And to have that guy come in right away, take the reins, and run with this thing, and now produce is unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
And to have an offensive line back from last year, they've done a wonderful job, for the most part, protecting Brian, and that's got to give your offensive weapons a lot of confidence.
It does, yeah. That's probably part of the reason I think Brian's made such a great transition is early in camp when we had an experienced offensive line to protect him. I think Saturday they struggled a bit. There were some things that I think that they're fully capable of. They just didn't get done. That'll be a point of emphasis for us this week, is to trying to get back on track and protect Brian and let him just do his job back there. But, yeah, the offensive line, ton of games started. If you look collectively across the board, those guys have started a ton of games for us over the past 3-4 years.
Mm-hmm. And, your receiving core has been lights out. You've got a young kid that's come up in Toomer. He's going to be, he's going to be quite a player. But you also have Rutenbeck, who really seems to have quite a connection with Bradshaw, and then Sean Anderson had a big ball game too this past week.
Yep. Those 3 guys, Sean and Najee and Tyler, complement each other very, very well. And the fun part about going through camp and putting these game plans together the first 2 weeks has been, how do we get those guys the ball? What do they do really well? How can we isolate them? How can we make them work together? And, Toomer's got an unbelievable upside. He's going to be a great player. Sean is proven, obviously, the last couple years. And then, like Coach Zweifel said earlier, Tyler is an explosive player that I think everybody's seen by now. And continuing to get him down the field is really a key point for us.
Well, as you're looking at Stevens Point this Saturday night, what kinds of things do you think you can do offensively that can be successful for you to get a W?
Well, I think we're hoping to fix a couple things from last week. As I mentioned earlier, protect Brian a little bit better, let him do his job. Another thing that I think we need to focus on is getting these third and shorts converted, both on the ground and through the air. Not sure exactly, how that's going to happen at this point, but we have to get those third downs converted. And I think the third thing is minimize turnovers. That first fumble last Saturday hurt us. The one the week before Kyle had on the ground, those hurt. And you never know when they're going to come back to get you. So I think if we can take care of some of that stuff, fix it this week against Stevens Point, we'll be okay. They're going to be very good. They're big. They're physical. They're going to play hard. They've got two inside backers that are brothers. They're just unbelievably big. They're big boys. They probably should be playing defensive line, but apparently up in Stevens Point, guys like that play linebacker. I don't know. So.
Well, we'll look forward to watching the Spartan offense this Saturday night, and good luck.
Appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us here on the program, and we'll let you get to practice. Looks like it's about time to start.
Yeah, they're out there.
Okay, Jake, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
That's Jake Olsen, offensive coordinator here at the University of Dubuque. We'll come back with some final comments and wrap up the broadcast for this week. This is the Stan Zweifel Show, University of Dubuque football on 101.1 The River. And we're back here for some final comments on the UD football show with Stan Zweifel. A reminder, we won't be on next Tuesday night because the Spartans have their bye week. We will resume with the UD football show with Coach Zweifel Tuesday, October 1st, and then we'll have shows every Tuesday night in October and into November, as we'll be into the throes of the Iowa Conference schedule then. Don't forget to tune in for our broadcast on Saturday night as the Spartans travel to Wisconsin Stevens Point. We'll be on the air at 5:40 with the pregame show, and the kickoff will be at 6 o'clock. Have a great rest of your Tuesday evening. For the UD Football Show with Stan Zweifel, I'm Tim Larry. Have a great night.